It's true that I was commissioned to write an opera before I had actually ever seen one. I started going to opera, and it took a few before I understood it. I won't name any names, but I did see a few pieces that I just didn't get, and in my arrogance, my thought at the time was, well, there's nothing wrong with opera that a good opera wouldn't fix. And then I saw some really great operas that were doing just fine before I came along.
To the dark room where I killed him. To the dark room.
The piece is so convincing. Edgar Allan Poe lived in a time before Freudian psychology, and he had no idea about the subconscious or anything like that, but he kind of sensed it. He figured it out, and he tells this tale, first person singular, in such a convincing way that it's tempting to regard this as some kind of confession. He really savors all of it. He's gloating over it with such enthusiasm that it's tempting to see the author, who was a very strange man himself, in the story. And since the story is a monologue and it doesn't name any of the characters, it describes conversations, but it doesn't give you any actual dialogue. So all that had to be constructed. And the characters had to be named, and rather than call them Joe and Fred, names out of nowhere, just as a kind of shorthand, it was Edgar and Allan, just because I couldn't think of any other names. But then the more I worked that concept, the more it sort of made sense. It doesn't make too much sense. We don't want to get into believing that Edgar kills Allan, he's killing one side of himself. I mean, that's reading more than is supposed to be there in the story. So that's a little bit of a red herring. So I very carefully misspelled Allan with just one, with actually two L's I gave him, and that should throw them off the scent. This is an interior piece. It's a monologue about the inner machinations of the mind, but it's also a very exterior piece. It's very large in its emotional scope. I mean, it's the narrator soars, he gloats, he has little tiny fearful moments, he has huge moments of high bravado, and this all makes it great for opera. The fact that there's a thumping heart makes it great for me. I like thumping. There is not a rock influence, but I also would like to avoid a classical sound. I think the reason they hired the likes of me is to get away from the classics and to bring something new in. And I've used classical instruments, but I would hope that the music doesn't really sound classical. I have a great debt to Mozart and Wagner for having created and built this wonderful medium, because they were so good at their job that this medium was built around the concept of the composer's vision, and the composer gets to lord it over everybody. And because of their great work, the likes of me can come in here, and they're all built and they all have their hierarchy with the composer at the top of it. Suits me fine. Now, competing with those guys is another matter. That's rather humbling. But I think that that just raises the stakes and makes my blood rush a little faster. To take advantage of the medium, you have to use music in a way that you wouldn't in a pop song. You have to use it in a way that you wouldn't in a film score. In a film score, the last thing you want to do is take people out of the movie. But in opera, kind of the purpose of the experience, it's a musical experience with drama. And the drama infuses the music with more power rather than the other way around. It's a musical experience. And so the music has to be the main event. And like in a pop song, it's about the track, the music and the hook and everything, and the lyric is there, but they work together. In film, the music has a completely different role. In music, in opera, the music has to be really important. I guess every time you do something that's complicated, you learn better ways of doing it. And the thing that's interesting about music is that it never gets old. I've been writing music for 40 years, longer, and there's still a new tune to be found. There's still a new interesting harmonic structure. There's still a new combination of instruments it's still completely as beguiling as it was the first time I ever heard a note of music. It just never gets old.